my audience. $122,198 and growing. That's the number, according to U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, of organs that are currently needed in the United States. These organs are needed by thousands of people for them to live, and without a transplant, they will die an unnecessary premature death. Organ transplantation, as defined by Merriam-Webster's dictionary, is to transfer an organ or tissue from one part or individual to another. The problem with modern medicine is that in many cases we have to wait for someone else to die who is a compatible match with the person in need. There are a few flaws with this system that I want to point out. One, not everyone who dies is an organ donor, so that means that there's no potential for their organs to go to use. Two, many people who die and are organ donors, their organs cannot be used for many reasons like damage and decay from not being recovered in time. Along with many other factors, organs are just not likely to surface for use. In fact, according to Organ Procurement and Transplantation Network, only 1,207 donors, 770 deceased, 500 living, were recovered in the month of January. So I think it's time we start looking in other directions for organs. What I think we need to consider is therapeutic cloning. In the next couple of minutes, I will tell you a little bit about therapeutic cloning, why we need to start looking into it, and the obstacles that we need to overcome to get this potentially life-saving technology out there. My hope here is that you learn a little bit more about the benefits of therapeutic cloning and hopefully change your thoughts about cloning. When you hear the word cloning, my guess is that the image that comes to mind is something out of a science fiction movie where there are two or more identical copies of the same person. I want to dispel this image though, because what you're thinking of is considered to be reproductive cloning. This is the process described by Chester Koh and Anthony Atla in their paper Therapeutic Cloning Applications for Organ Transplantation, where an embryo is developed from a source and then implanted into a female in the attempts to give rise to a genetically identical clone. Koh and Atla continue to say that therapeutic cloning, on the other hand, is a process of taking these early stage embryos and culturing them to produce genetically identical stem cells. These stem cells then have the ability to develop into any type of organ or tissue and be transplanted with very minimal risk of rejection. So just to recap, the type of cloning where another copy of a person is made is reproductive cloning, whereas therapeutic cloning makes stem cells that can be turned into any organ. Now that we know what therapeutic cloning is, I want to tell you why we need to consider it a viable option for medical use. In Jennifer Wilson's paper, How Cloning Could Change Medicine, she explains multiple uses for therapeutic cloning. This includes the obvious transplantation of organs, but also cures for many types of diseases like Parkinson's and Alzheimer's, osteoporosis and diabetes, along with many others. I want to expand on this though, and hopefully you will get a better sense of the potential here. Let's say you need a new heart because you have degenerative heart disease, and your heart could give out at any moment. With today's system, you would have to wait for someone else to die that is genetically similar. Then you'd have to go through rounds of immunosuppressant drug treatments that would basically destroy your body's ability to fight any infection. After all this, you go through your surgery and your body still rejects the heart. You're now dead. Now, here's the same situation if therapeutic cloning were involved. You show up to the hospital, the doctors take some genetic material, and a few days later, a heart is ready to be implanted. You go through the surgery and your body can't tell the difference between the heart that was just implanted and the one removed, because it is from you and is 100% identical to you. Do you see the potential now? Because this is what furthering medicine with therapeutic cloning could look like with more research into the topic. Why don't we research this then? Well, it all comes down to ethics. What is ethically right and what is ethically wrong? The question comes into play because the embryo that has to be destroyed could potentially become alive. And according to the parish education program, the Catholic Church has taken a stand against the destruction of life in any form. This causes a major ethical issue for research into therapeutic cloning because, again, the potential life is destroyed. Along with the Church, according to cloning laws and public policy, the American government has had some legislation passed against cloning for ethical reasons also. I'm not here to go against the Church or the government, but I just want to point out that there are 2 million American lives that will be lost to disease this year alone. These lives could potentially be saved with technology from therapeutic cloning. I think what we need to consider is whether it's more important to cure every disease that we can, or at least have a solution to them, or whether allowing these embryos to have a chance at life. These are the obstacles that we need to overcome. We need to find a way to move through all the ethics to find a path that is in support of cloning. I want to end with an argument from Charlotte Coffrey's article, Therapeutic Cloning, Promises and Issues. She says, nothing morally compelled one to generate a somatic cell nuclear transferred embryo that would have otherwise not existed. Therefore, we are not morally obligated to transfer the latter in utero, and furthermore, under the philosophical point of view, cell replacement therapy does not involve the destruction of an embryo, but only its transformation into an embryonic cell line. Today, I told you what therapeutic cloning was, some of the obstacles that we need to overcome, and why we need to consider it an option for medicinal use. My hopes are that when time comes, you consider what I've talked about and realize this is a technology that we need.